When grudges turn to goals and old wounds finally get stitched shut, the NHL's sweetest victories are born out of pure revenge. From bench-clearing brawls to ex-teammates haunting their former clubs, these are the top 10 most savage revenge games in NHL history. Let's dive in. When the Canadiens let Michael Ryder walk in free agency in 2008, few imagined how much it would sting later. Ryder quickly joined the rival Boston Bruins, and his departure turned into one of those quiet what-if moments in Montreal's history. During his first 4 seasons with the Canadiens, Ryder proved himself as a natural goal scorer, racking up 99 goals and recording back-to-back 30-goal campaigns. But his production dipped in his 4th year, just 14 goals, and with young players like the Kostitsyn brothers, Chris Higgins, and Guillaume Latendresse emerging, Ryder's role and ice time shrank. His move to Boston made the Canadiens pay almost immediately. In the 2009 playoffs, the Bruins swept Montreal in 4 games, with Ryder leading the way offensively, scoring 4 goals and adding 3 assists, including the decisive goal in Game 3. 2 years later, in the 2011 first-round rematch, Ryder struck again. Though not as dominant, overall, he came up huge in Game 4 at the Bell Center, tallying 2 goals and an assist, capped off with the overtime winner. Boston would go on to capture their first Stanley Cup since 1972, leaving Canadiens fans to wonder what might have been if Ryder had never left. The Colorado Avalanche's 2022 Stanley Cup run was packed with unforgettable storylines. From Gabriel Landeskog's leadership through injury to his inspiring return years later, but few moments burned as hot as the controversy between Nazem Kadri and St. Louis Blues goaltender Jordan Binnington. In Game 3 of their second-round matchup, Kadri collided with Binnington on a net front play that changed the series instantly. The contact knocked Binnington out of the remainder of the postseason, and tensions exploded afterward, both on and off the ice. As Kadri gave a live television interview following the game, Binnington reportedly hurled a water bottle at him in frustration. What followed was an outpouring of hate online, as Kadri faced waves of threats and racist abuse from angry fans, turning an already volatile situation into something deeply ugly. Kadri's response was nothing short of remarkable. In Game 4, he silenced the noise in the most emphatic way possible by scoring a hat trick and leading the Avalanche to a commanding victory. He went on to tie Nathan MacKinnon for the team lead with 7 points in the series as Colorado eliminated St. Louis in 6 games. From there, the Avalanche rolled through the Western Conference Final and captured the Stanley Cup, with Kadri's performance against the Blues standing out as one of the defiant moments of their championship run. When Joé Juneau burst onto the NHL scene with the Boston Bruins in 1992, he immediately turned heads. The rookie forward exploded for 32 goals and 102 points, finishing second in Calder Trophy voting to Teemu Selanne, who happened to shatter the rookie goal-scoring record that year with 76 goals and 132 points for Winnipeg. Centering a dynamic Bruins offense alongside Adam Oates, Ray Bourque, and Dmitry Kvartalnov, Juneau helped Boston post the second-best record in the league. But just a year later, the Bruins shocked fans by trading him to the Washington Capitals for hard-shooting defenseman Al Iafrate. At the time, the move had some logic. Cam Neely was returning from a devastating knee injury, and Boston's blue line needed a boost. Still, dealing away a 100-point player felt baffling, and many wondered if the Bruins were mortgaging too much. Those doubts only deepened in 1998 when the Bruins and Capitals met in the first round of the playoffs. The series was tied 1-1 when Juneau, now reunited with Oates in Washington, silenced the Boston crowd by scoring the overtime winner in Game 3, a goal that cut deep into his former team. By then, Iafrate was no longer in Boston and would retire later that year with San Jose, while Juneau was thriving. That spring, he became one of Washington's key playoff performers, helping the franchise reach its first ever Stanley Cup final. Though the Capitals ultimately fell to the Detroit Red Wings, Juneau and Oates led the team in postseason scoring, and in the process, Juneau's heroics served as a painful reminder to Boston of what they had let slip away. Let's rewind to the summer of 2011. After 3 seasons in the KHL with Avangard Omsk, Jaromír Jágr was ready for an NHL comeback. At 39 years old, he'd proven in Russia that his skill and conditioning were still elite, and several teams lined up to bring him back, including the Pittsburgh Penguins, the franchise where his legendary NHL career began. But Pittsburgh fans still hadn't forgotten how things ended the first time. Jágr's departure from the Penguins years earlier had been messy, and his subsequent stints with the rival Capitals and Rangers, especially his MVP-caliber 2005-06 season in New York, left a lingering bitterness. When rumors spread that he might return to Pittsburgh, social media exploded with excitement and nostalgia. Then came the twist. Jágr signed not with the Penguins, but one of their most hated rivals, the Philadelphia Flyers. His first game back in Pittsburgh was electric and hostile. Penguins fans showered him with boos for what they saw as a betrayal, and Jágr answered in the best way he knew how, by scoring a goal and capping it off with his trademark salute celebration, helping the Flyers to a 4-2 win. A few months later, the drama reached its peak in the first round of the playoffs. The Flyers and Penguins faced off in a chaotic, high-scoring series that saw Philadelphia come out on top in 6 games. Jágr, at nearly 40, proved he still had it, recording a goal and 6 assists. And once again, he left Pittsburgh fans with a bitter reminder of the one who got away. The last time the Buffalo Sabres appeared in the Stanley Cup playoffs was in 2011, when Ryan Miller backstopped a gritty team that pushed the Philadelphia Flyers to 7 games. What made that loss particularly painful wasn't just the elimination, it was the man who helped deliver it, former Sabres star Daniel Brière. Brière was unstoppable in that series, leading all scorers with 6 goals. Buffalo held a 3-2 series lead and had a chance to close things out at home in Game 6, but Brière buried 2 goals to keep the Flyers alive, who went on to win 5-4 in overtime on a tally by Ville Leino, a player who would ironically join the Sabres the following season. In Game 7, Brière struck again, opening the scoring to give Philadelphia an early edge in a 5-2 victory that ended Buffalo's playoff run. Adding to the sting was the history behind it all. Brière had left the Sabres for the Flyers in 2007 after then general manager Darcy Regier prioritized re-signing Chris Drury and ended up losing both stars in free agency. Seeing Brière play a central role in Buffalo's downfall just a few years later with the team he chose over them felt like salt in the wound. That playoff exit marked the start of what would become a 14-year postseason drought, a stretch that, for many Sabres fans, still traces back to the day Brière walked away. In the summer of 1988, the sports world was turned upside down when the Edmonton Oilers traded Wayne Gretzky to the Los Angeles Kings, a move still regarded as the most shocking trade in professional sports history. There were reasons behind it: financial pressures, contract disputes, and internal politics, but no amount of logic could soften the blow of seeing the greatest and most recognizable player in hockey history shipped out just weeks after leading Edmonton to its 4th Stanley Cup of the decade. Gretzky's arrival in Los Angeles instantly transformed the Kings and the NHL itself, injecting new life and popularity into the sport in California. His first season in black and silver ended fittingly, with the Kings meeting his old team, the Oilers, in the playoffs. Instead of lining up beside Mark Messier and Jari Kurri, Gretzky now faced them across the ice, flanked by new teammates like Luc Robitaille, Bernie Nichols, and Chris Kontos. The series became an instant classic. Edmonton jumped out to a 3-1 lead, but Gretzky orchestrated a stunning comeback. He posted 13 points, 4 goals and 9 assists across the 7 games, and capped it off with 2 goals and an assist in a decisive 6-3 Game 7 win, knocking out the team he once led to glory. For Edmonton fans, the loss was as painful as it was surreal. Their hero had become the architect of their downfall, but the Oilers would have the final word. A year later, they swept the Kings in the Smythe Division Final and went on to capture their 5th Stanley Cup, proving they could still reign supreme even without the Great One. When a superstar gets traded, a reunion with their former team is bound to make headlines. But no one expected Mikko Rantanen's first season away from the Colorado Avalanche to bring him face-to-face with his old teammates so soon. When Rantanen and the Avalanche failed to agree on a contract extension, Colorado made the difficult decision to move him, sending the elite winger to the Carolina Hurricanes and out of the Western Conference to avoid the risk of seeing him in a potential playoff matchup. On paper, it made sense. In reality, it unraveled fast. Rantanen never found his footing in Carolina, managing just 6 points in 13 games, while making it clear he had no interest in staying long-term. With tensions mounting, Hurricanes GM Eric Tulsky decided to cut losses, dealing Rantanen again, this time to the Dallas Stars. The irony? When the playoff matchups were set, Dallas drew Colorado in the opening round. What followed was poetic and painful for Avalanche fans. Rantanen torched his former club, piling up 5 goals and 7 assists in Dallas's 7-game series win. His defining moment came in Game 7 when he erupted for a third-period hat trick to erase a 2-0 deficit and power the Stars to a stunning 4-2 comeback victory. It was a statement performance, the kind that rewrote the narrative about Rantanen's greatness. For years, critics claimed his success depended on playing alongside Nathan MacKinnon. After that series, there was no doubt left. Mikko Rantanen was a superstar in his own right. In the rough-and-tumble NHL of the late 1980s and early 1990s, there were enforcers, there were agitators, and then there were players like Ulf Samuelsson, whose physicality often crossed the line into outright danger. During the 1991 Wales Conference Final between the Boston Bruins and Pittsburgh Penguins, Samuelsson delivered one of the most infamous hits in league history, a knee-on-knee collision with Bruins power forward Cam Neely that would forever alter Neely's career. The incident occurred in Game 3 of the series when Samuelsson caught Neely awkwardly along the boards. The hit left Boston's star winger hobbled and in visible pain, and though he tried to battle through it, the injury severely limited him as the Penguins went on to eliminate the Bruins in 6 games. What followed was 2 grueling years of surgeries and rehab for Neely, who appeared in just 9 games the next season and 13 the year after. But Neely never forgot. In one of those 13 appearances during the 1992-93 season, fittingly against the Penguins, he seized his chance at revenge. Wasting no time, Neely dropped the gloves and went straight after Samuelsson, unleashing a flurry of punches before being assessed an instigator penalty, a fighting major, and a game misconduct. Samuelsson, true to reputation, wanted no part of the scrap. Though Neely never again managed a full season after the injury, his determination remained legendary. In 1993-94, he scored 50 goals in just 49 games, an astonishing feat considering the chronic pain he played through, cementing one of the gutsiest campaigns in NHL history. Neely retired after the 1995-96 season, his career shortened, but his legend intact. Samuelsson, meanwhile, continued playing until 2000, finishing with 1,080 games, 2,453 penalty minutes, and a reputation as one of the league's most reviled opponents. The Four Nations Face-Off may go down as one of the most exciting tournaments in hockey history, and for Team USA, it's one that will sting for years to come. The Americans were poised for glory, only to have it slip away in heartbreaking fashion as Canada edged them out in overtime of the championship game. Team USA had looked like the class of the field early on, defeating Canada 3-1 in the round robin to secure a direct path to the final. Canada, meanwhile, had to grind their way through a tense 5-3 win over Finland just to earn another shot at their rivals. Both meetings between the two powerhouses were tight, emotional battles, and the intensity only heightened when the Americans' earlier win came on hostile ice in Montreal, where the crowd jeered them relentlessly. That triumph set the stage for what seemed like poetic symmetry, a chance to clinch the title on home soil in Boston. But Canada had other plans. Down 2-1 in the third period, they clawed back to tie the game on a Sam Bennett goal, sending the final into overtime. There, the inevitable happened. Connor McDavid, the game's most electrifying player, found a seam in the slot and ripped a shot past Connor Hellebuck to seal the 3-2 victory. For the United States, it was a gut-wrenching déjà vu, a painful echo of the 2010 Olympics when Sidney Crosby buried the golden goal to beat Ryan Miller in Vancouver. Once again, Canada's biggest stars delivered when it mattered most, leaving the Americans to wonder what might have been. The mid to late 1990s produced one of the fiercest rivalries in NHL history, and maybe in all of sports, when the Colorado Avalanche and Detroit Red Wings clashed in a series of unforgettable, often violent showdowns. These weren't just games between two elite teams. They were grudge matches defined by raw hatred, revenge, and pride. The rivalry had everything: superstar talent, bad blood, and enough chaos to fill highlight reels for decades. Ask an Avalanche fan, and they'll say it all began in the 1996 Western Conference Final, when Detroit's Slava Kozlov drove Adam Foote into the boards in Game 3, opening a deep gash that required 20 stitches. But ask a Red Wings fan, or almost anyone else, and they'll point to what happened 3 games later. In Game 6, Colorado's Claude Lemieux crushed Chris Draper face first into the boards in one of the dirtiest hits in playoff history. Draper was left with a broken jaw, shattered cheekbone, and orbital bone, and needed reconstructive surgery. The Avalanche won that game, eliminated the Red Wings, and went on to claim the Stanley Cup, while Detroit was left humiliated, furious, and hungry for payback. For nearly a decade, tension simmered. Everyone in hockey knew the Red Wings hadn't forgotten. Then, on March 26, 1997, the powder keg finally blew. In their final regular season meeting, what began as a wrestling match between Peter Forsberg and Igor Larionov erupted into total chaos. Darren McCarty blindsided Lemieux, who never had a chance to defend himself, and pummeled him mercilessly. Patrick Waugh stormed out of the crease to join the fray, only to be launched into the air by Brendan Shanahan. Seconds later, Waugh was trading haymakers at center ice with Detroit goalie Mike Vernon, while the rest of the players paired off across the rink in one of the wildest brawls ever witnessed in the modern NHL. Somehow, despite the carnage, no one was ejected. And fittingly, it was McCarty, Detroit's enforcer and Lemieux's chief tormentor, who buried the overtime winner to give the Red Wings a 6-5 victory. That night became known simply as Fight Night at the Joe, and it reignited Detroit's fire. When the two teams met again in the Western Conference Final that spring, the Red Wings finally exercised their demons, defeating the Avalanche in 6 games and capturing their first Stanley Cup since 1955. It was the perfect ending to one of hockey's most brutal, unforgettable rivalries, a feud built on pain, pride, and payback. And there you have it, the 10 most savage revenge games in NHL history. So, what do you think was the most savage revenge game in NHL history? Do you agree with the list? Let us know in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more videos.